We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love. The COVID-19 pandemic has irrevocably shaped how connections are formed in congregations across the United States and the world. The Church of the Larger Fellowship is committed to being a resource within Unitarian Universalism and beyond. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine Quest to our online community hub and our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison. The CLF supports the ministries of those who hold target identities: Blue, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism; Trust, Transgender Religious UU Professionals Together; and Drum, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, just to name a few. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed, even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The View. The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message.
Greetings, beloved. It is time for another episode of Voices of Unitarian Universalism, also known as The View. This talk show that has been going on for 12 years now, brought to you by the Church of the Larger Fellowship, your Unitarian Universalist congregation without borders or walls. I'm the Reverend Dr. Michael Tino, part of the lead ministry team at the Church of the Larger Fellowship. My pronouns are they and them. I am a middle-aged, almost bald, white, dude-ish person wearing green glasses and a Cornell University sweatshirt. And I'm coming to you from Peekskill, New York, which is about 35 miles north of New York City. It's the land of the Kitchewan, Wappinger, and Munsee Lenape peoples. And it is a cold but bright spring day. Like spring and winter are having a little fight, and like it got warm and then it got cold again, and I think last night might have been our last scheduled frost of the season. I looked forward a couple weeks in the calendar, and there don't seem to be temperatures below 32. So I'm hoping that spring is winning that fight, as it does every year. And that's what's going on here. Dante, how are you?
I'm good, Reverend Michael. Dante Hilliard here, learning fellow for the Church of the Larger Fellowship for worship. I am a Black American man with reddish brown dreadlocks and black rimmed glasses and a very bright and vibrant hot pink sweater. We too are having a battle between spring and winter here, and if winter has been winning lately, my heat turned on the last 2 nights, and I was like, oh, it's cold. It's in the low 30s. Okay, great. So here in the land of the Piscataway peoples, also known as Baltimore, Maryland, USA, the site for this year's General Assembly.
Yes. So let's start there, shall we?
Okay.
Unitarian Universalists will be gathering in Baltimore and also virtually for a multi-platform General Assembly at the end of June. Among the exciting things on the agenda are a congregational study action issue proposal that the Church of the Larger Fellowship is putting together on abolition, which you can find out more about at clfuu.org/abolition, and we'll get that in the chart in the notes here. And we are going to have some upcoming shows with people who are partnering with us on this work. When we talk about abolition, we mean prison abolition, and we also mean lots of other things because we understand that the goal of prison abolition cannot be achieved until everyone has a chance to thrive, until we have a society that addresses the root causes of crime and has unraveled the ways in which we have fucked up uh, criminality and harm and punishment and mess. We've done it. We've made a great mess of that, and it all has to be unraveled before we can get to prison abolition. So we also mean the abolition of slavery, because legal enslavement in the United States happens to incarcerated people. And we'll get to this, I'm sure, later in the program. But now we're sending people to other countries to be enslaved in prison camps, because let's just be like completely genocidal toward our immigrant siblings. That's it. So we're trying to work on abolition together, and that'll be on the General Assembly agenda. We have a store. Let me get the link. Um, I'm going to get the link. We have a new store um, uh, that we're selling some merchandise, which is exciting. And you can get your own "My UU Faith Demands Abolition" T-shirt or sweatshirt or tote bag. You can also get just Church of the Larger Fellowship swag there, and support our congregational study action issue. Uh, if you're coming to General Assembly and you want to support our study action issue, please buy a yellow T-shirt and wear it at General Assembly. It's got a giant QR code on the back of it that sends people to our abolition website, and I want people scanning each other's T-shirts at GA. So that's what we're excited about. And again, we're going to have a couple of upcoming View episodes with guests who are in partner organizations that we're working with on this project. And there's probably something else on the agenda too. Oh yeah, my Darby said that her abolition tote and T-shirt came in this week. Mine came in last week, and this is what it looks like, and it's really pretty fabulous. And we are the art on it is by one of our incarcerated members, and we are who gave us permission to use his art, and we are actually working with him to see how we might get some of the very we've set our prices as low as possible, but we still make like $1 on each shirt, and we're going to share that with our incarcerated member whose artwork is on this, and like get some money into his commissary because his artwork is so beautiful. So Support Michael W., incarcerated CLF members. Support the CLF and support our CSAI all at the same time. Again, there might be something else on the agenda at GA, and I don't know what it is yet. I will learn. I will learn later when I prepare to do my annual orientation for Church of the Larger Fellowship delegates. If you are a CLF member, go to our website to learn how to become a delegate if you're interested in that too. But we're coming to Baltimore, and like I have truly only been to Baltimore once or twice in my life, Dante, and you live there. So I thought that like at least part of our show can be the Dante Hilliard guide to must see places in Baltimore.
Let's try that.
So you told me about ice cream.
Yes, there's some
before we came on the air, and
there's some of the best ice cream in the world here. It's locally owned company, black owned company called Taharka Brothers Ice Cream. If you are an ice cream eater, you do not want to leave Baltimore and not get Taharka Brothers.
I will be sampling it if anyone wants ice cream.
They also are I think they practice really ethical business practices. They are locally owned. They do not sell their product in big box grocery stores. You can only go to locally owned grocery stores in Baltimore to get it, or come to their store. So, but Taharka Brothers Ice Cream, you don't want to leave here without
their website says they're widely known for their unique social mission, focusing on creating an impactful, profitable business managed and operated by young adults from some of Baltimore's most troubled neighborhoods.
Yes. Since y'all are going to be in the harbor and downtown area, Darker Than Blue Grill is a lovely soul food restaurant, or black Southern cuisine restaurant. Delicious. I've had their shrimp and grits. I've had the fried chicken. I've had the green. It's all delicious. Very, very delicious. So I give them high marks as well.
I'm still stuck on ice cream, Dante. I'm on the Taharka Brothers website. Like before I get to soul food, I'm still stuck on ice cream. Black cherry ice cream with chunks of chocolate and Bing cherries. Like that's what I'm going to be having. I only got up to B in their alphabetical list of flavors. Oh my goodness!
And LJ is dropping links that I've shared into the chat. But there are some really funky and interesting things to do here. There's a tattoo museum. There are several Black museums. There's the National Blacks and Wax Museum here. There's the Reginald Lewis Museum here. So those are interesting things. I think we also just dropped a link about Black Baltimore if you want to know more about the history. If you're really into, Baltimore is one of the older cities in the United States. So if you go into the Fells Point neighborhood, there's some gentrification stuff there too. And it's also the part of the city where you can see the original Baltimore, where it's still left, where the streets are still brick paved. This is a neighborhood along the harbor front, and lots of shops, locally owned shops, lots of locally owned restaurants. It's a place that a lot of people go on weekends for a brunch. And so that's a wonderful thing. And there's also a boat that sits in the harbor that is also a restaurant called the Rusty Scupper. And they offer a jazz brunch on weekends. I believe maybe it's on Sundays. And I've done that. And it's a place that I've taken folks who were visiting. And you can sit on the boat with this lovely water view and listen to great music and have brunch. So that's some other stuff. And the National Aquarium, if you have young people in your life, or you just happen to love aquariums and marine life. I haven't been, but everyone says it's one of the best aquariums in the country. So, and I know lots of people who come here specifically to bring their children to that museum. So those are some highlights.
And the place I ate in Baltimore, I believe, is the Blue Moon Cafe.
Blue Moon. That sounds familiar. I can't place it right now.
Don't ask me anything more, but the
no, I believe there is a Blue Moon
out of this world.
There is a Blue Moon. I just can't. I can't place it, but the name I recognize it. And in the downtown Harbor, Mount Vernon areas, there's food from all over. There's Indian food. There's Vietnamese food. There's Turkish food. There's lots of different foods represented from around the world. If you like pho, there's so many pho restaurants. If you like good ramen, there's some really great ramen restaurants as well.
So it is on Alice Anna Street in Fells Point.
Aliciana, yeah.
That's pronounced Aliciana?
Uh-huh.
Viewers, it is spelled Alice Anna. I swear this. So
Aliciana, yeah.
Aliciana, okay. Yeah. This is like New Orleans level pronunciation.
Oh, and we have a street. We have Orleans Street and we have Fayette Street. So I thought it's not New Orleans, it's Orleans, and then we have Fayette. It's not Lafayette. But yeah.
I just know, like, when I've been to New Orleans many more times than to Baltimore, and if you're not from New Orleans, you need a guide to the pronunciation of.
Oh, the other thing here, so because it'll be summer, snow cones and ices are a thing here in Baltimore, and there's these icy and custard stands all over the place. You will find those sort of
break from the ice cream. For when you need a break from the ice cream,
right? So there's the Rita's, which is kind of chain place, but then there are a lot of these locally owned ice cone and custard shops, and they do a thing with custard on the snow cones. It's a thing here. I just prefer my ice. I'm a purist when it comes to my ices. I just want ice and the juice. But lots of locally owned snow cone shaved ice places.
And Rita's is a Philadelphia thing.
Yeah.
Because as they would say in Philadelphia, it's water ice. That's how they say water in Philadelphia. For those of you who don't know Philadelphian. But yes, it's like Italian ice.
Yes. But the shaved ice is a thing. In New York. Shaved ice is a really big thing. And I do know there is a Black-owned shaved ice place in Lotus Point, which is a neighborhood on the south side of the harbor. And often they have lines because they have a restaurant and they have a snow cone and they do the shaved ice. So I can't remember the name.
And the General Assembly is right there at the Inner Harbor. That's where the convention center is. So like right by Camden Yards, the baseball stadium, which is next door to Fells Point.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at my Baltimore map.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I go south, that's the South Harbor.
Yep. Oh, and we also have water taxis. So if you've never been on a water taxi ride, in the Inner Harbor is the main attraction of the downtown area, the area built up around the harbor. And so there are water taxis that will take you from one part of the harbor to another part.
Nice.
Yes. Thank you.
So is that Ice Queens? Black desserts and sweets. See, LJ is doing their research behind the scenes too. This is your CLF guide to Baltimore. While we're working on abolition together, we need to eat.
And
our bodies.
I would also say this. I've been here over 10 years, and sometimes people say, why are you in Baltimore? And there's a couple reasons. Because I moved here to take a job in DC, but I knew I didn't want to live in DC. I wanted to live in Baltimore. One of the reasons is Baltimore reminds me of my own Midwestern hometown, that, one of those towns that post-industrialization forgot, right? And so the people, very, very working class, very regular people. And I love and I trust that in people. And the other thing about Baltimore, I don't care how much privilege and money you have to work really hard to ignore the structural injustices that you see, right? The de-investment in communities, or the gentrification of communities because now their properties have become valuable over time and space. And so I say, if you're coming to Baltimore, don't turn away. Witness the realities of Baltimore too, not just the trendy, sort of touristy things, but witness the realities of what it means to be a Baltimorean too. Don't be afraid to see that, really.
Yeah, because that's like the ethical way to visit someplace, right? We're not just swooping in and eating at gentrified restaurants and then swooping out. Like, we should understand the place that we're going to.
Yeah.
Why would anyone ask you, why do you live in Baltimore? It's that is so rude. People
do it all the time. People do
rude.
it all the time. And when I bought a house in the city, they were like, "Oh, you live in the city?" Yes, I live in the city. I am not a suburbanite. The suburbs give me the hives. No, I'm a city boy.
Well, you needed to be near the commuter train probably to get back.
Well, that too, because I was commuting. But yeah, so there are sights and sounds. I think there's a link in there to the Black historical and Black Baltimore. So if you want to know more about Black Baltimore, I think there's a link, in the chat as well. That sort of points out the various neighborhoods and histories that you can find here. So, we also, the library system. I think we have the first public library system in the United States, the Enoch Pratt library system, and which I didn't know prior to this system, libraries were privatized, right? And that was not something, people owned collections and they would grant access to who they wanted to. And I believe we may be the first city to have a fully public library system.
Nice. So there's a lot to learn about, and of course, the Unitarian Universalist presence in Baltimore is old. The first Unitarian, or the Unitarian Church of Baltimore, has been around since the
Enoch Pratt.
Since the 18th century, at the very least. It is where in 1819, William Ellery Channing gave the sermon that basically launched the American Unitarian Association, which this year celebrates its 200th anniversary. So, William Ellery Channing was a Boston preacher, but American Unitarianism was born in Baltimore. So, we're glad to be coming. At least those of us who are able to be there.
And if you're if you're a worship or liturgy nerd like me, and you're interested in ways in which other people are experimenting with pluralism and different ways that what church can look like, there is I'm losing the name. It was founded by Brad Braxton. The Open Church Maryland is here. And I believe they have Christian roots, but they really, they were founded to question. And so they experiment with bringing other voices into the worship, into their study, and sort of moving beyond a more closed orientation to faith and Christianity too. So if you're interested in things like that, that might be a place to check out as well.
Nice. Well, thank you. I just appreciate the insider knowledge and the knowledge that's steeped in the realities of Baltimore and the tourist guide. So, um, what else? What else are we here to discuss today? I mean, every time anyone asks me how I'm doing, I have to refer to that that comic strip of the dog sitting in the middle of the flames, going, "This is fine,"
Fine.
uh, because I don't know any other way to describe it. And so, if you know that comic strip, that's how I'm doing right now. Like, oh, like everything is burning around me, and like, what do I do about that? Um, I'm again wearing my Cornell sweatshirt in part because it's my alma mater, and in part because in response to the U.S. administration's ongoing attack on institutions of higher education, uh, because uh, because college educated people don't vote for the hate pumpkin. So he's attacking colleges and universities, like because because that's the way you do it, right? And yesterday's news was that he is withholding $1 billion in federal funding for grants from Cornell, which is the largest amount so far that he's withholding. In part because Cornell is a public school, it gets more grants than many of these private schools, but the grants are for things like cancer research and energy research and their defense contracts with the engineering school. And I learned because I'm a Cornell alum that the university found out about it online because the administration posted it to social media before they told the university. And so, like, early reports were like $1 billion from Cornell. Representatives of Cornell did not comment on the story because they hadn't actually had official word of it yet. And later yesterday, they got official word that these grants were being canceled. And it's just, I mean, who do they think they're hurting? I don't. It's it's I don't know. As someone whose graduate education was paid for by a National Institutes of Health grant because I was working on lung immunology, which is like of actual concern to people and people's health. Like, who do they think they're hurting? They're decimating science research. They're decimating product development. They're decimating in the name of what? In the name of what?
Yeah. Um,
So
I think you remind me that in this time where we've been talking about strategically spending or not spending our money in certain places, I think if you are an alum of a college or university, it's a good time to pay attention to whether you're a donor to this institution or not as an alum and how they are responding to these threats. Many
yeah,
schools are buckling. Ohio State, one of my alma maters, buckled very quickly, very early, shut down their DEI, quote unquote, DEI programs, and at least displaced about 20 workers. And so, I mean, we should be paying attention to that. If you don't support that stuff, you might want to think about your alumni dollars too, differently.
yeah, and I'm thankful that at least in their initial response, Cornell didn't buckle.
Mm-hmm.
But like, how do you make up $1 billion in funding? it's not like they have that sitting in their bank account. I mean, it's $1 billion. Um, they do get support from New York State because it is in part a state school, right? So the grants that were cut from the Department of Agriculture for agriculture research, for I mean, y'all love your Cornell Lab of Ornithology Merlin bird app, right? If you have your Merlin bird app that tells you what birds are singing when you hold up your phone, it's because bird researchers, ornithologists at Cornell, developed an app that is useful to the wider world. Um, if you love birds,
Mm. You know, mm, my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, was founded at Cornell in 1906. So, brothers, I hope you're paying attention.
and who knows if they will buckle, right? Because again, how do you make up $1 billion? And it's what this man, whose name shall not be uttered, wants. He wants to exercise power in coercive ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
These tariffs that he's announcing are about making foreign leaders grovel before him. That he wants people to like bow before him and grovel and beg for his mercy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he wants from these universities, and some of them are doing it.
Yeah. And let's not forget the land grant colleges and universities, most of whom mission are around agriculture and have deep ties to the agriculture of their states, that will be also harmed in this process.
Yeah. And I think there was a story I heard on the BBC radio this morning, BBC NewsHour, which was on my NPR station, about how there's increasing pressure from Republicans to end this nonsense, because the people being hurt are like soybean farmers in Iowa, because Iowa exports most of its soybeans to China, and China's not groveling. Um, so, um, so we have a question about how do I purchase merch on Bonfire? Does that the link that we gave you, bonfire.com/Church of the Larger Fellowship, does not work? We'll figure that out. Hold on a second. Bonfire.com/store/Church of the Larger Fellowship, with little hyphens between all those words, should bring you to our store. I hope. You should be able to buy stuff. I hope that's not my login. So, again, yeah, it's about power, right? And yeah, Levon comments in the chat, bend the knee, kiss the ring.
Absolutely.
That's exactly it, right?
Okay, Susanna got it together. She figured it out.
Okay, yay! So I don't know what more there is to say about that bullshit either. The when I'm speechless, I'm sitting in the fire and going, oh. People are worried about their retirement, and Social Security and like what's being done to Social Security and people not getting their checks, and it's. I have to say, so Dante, you're also a Gen Xer.
Hmm.
Um, so maybe you can identify with this. And I apologize to those of you who are out there in different generations who feel differently. But I have to say that as a Generation Xer, I never assumed that Social Security would actually still be there when I retired. I was just like, surely it will be broken by the time I get to retirement.
I mean, for most of our adult life, they've been raiding it and trying to destroy it.
Right.
So we had no reason to believe it would still be around for us.
So I don't even know. Oh, apparently the GOP budget passed the House. That's lovely.
Yeah, I wish the most political intrigue in my life was a Shonda Rhimes series. This, I see why Scandal had to go off the air because
It wasn't too close to reality.
it couldn't compete with the wackiness of.
I mean, if Shonda Rhimes scripted what's going on right now,
Oh, we would all be like, "Girl, please."
she would not be able to sell it as a pilot.
They were like, "This is too much. This is too much."
So, yeah, Susanna writes, I rely on Social Security. And so many people do. Millions and millions and millions of people like need those checks in order to pay their rent and buy their food. And it's not like this is not and now they're making it harder to get survivor benefits. So for people who especially for people who chose lower paying employment because their spouse was able to have higher paying employment, they're gonna not get their spouse's benefits automatically, and people rely on that too. There are stories out there, just like the checks don't come, and they call, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you have to apply for it, and it's not automatic." It's like, well, whoa, like you're not allowed to change the rules unilaterally. It's just. And what else? What else? What else? What else is doing? What else is going on in the world?
Isn't the CFPB officially gone now too?
I, I think if it's not officially gone, they probably fired everyone who works there. So it's like exists on paper, but doesn't actually have any employees. Um,
Oh, okay. The page, I was just checking. Well, the website is still active, but I don't know what that means.
they just took all the black people off of it.
Yeah, there are no images in here anywhere. But I do know they're also in the process of deregulating things so that banks and credit card companies can also have their way with our, coins, as we say, where I'm from. Start watching those fees and late fees and overdraft fees, and we're gonna charge you to hold your money fees. And
Right, there have been limits on those things recently, and they're going to go away. So, what else is going on in our world that we need to talk about here on The View today, Dante?
so much, but so little. Okay, what's been making you smile or laugh lately? Anything particular?
It's a good question. That's a really good question. I mean, the last time I really had a really good belly laugh was playing a ridiculous board game with it was this game. It It was called Telestrations. I don't know if any of you out there are board game people. Telestrations, like telephone illustrations. And it was, the game that you used to play in elementary school of telephone,
Mm-hmm.
whisper something and see how it changed down the
Yeah.
line. This is, you have to draw something and you give it to the next person and they have to interpret what you drew and write a word. And then they give their word to the next person who has to draw that word.
Ah.
Who then, and as you go down the line, the bigger the group is, the funnier it gets. But every other person has to interpret the word, and every other person has to draw it. And then you get to the end, and you go through. Like my word was bunny rabbit, and I drew this thing, and someone thought it was a kitty cat, right? And then like someone drew a kitty cat, and right, whatever, right?
Someone thought it was a wolf.
Or thought the word was cat food.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and then it became can. And it just was this moment where even amidst all the swirling negativity and all of the crisis and all of the very real pain
Mm-hmm.
that's out there, we just laughed for like 2 hours. We laughed and we laughed and we laughed and we laughed. And I haven't. This was February, so it's been 2 months, and I'm still holding on to that. I'm still holding on to that joy. How about you, Dante?
My biggest joy and laughter, like, it's just time I spent with my friends, whether it's virtual or in person, and just really being present for one another with one another in the way, where a conversation can go from deeply serious to sublimely ridiculous. Um, and that's what I'm holding on to these days is, um, connection to folk, um, and my spiritual disciplines. I don't know that it sounds kind of nerdy, but um, it helps for me
Yeah.
to really be more mindful around my spiritual disciplines, because it is so easy to be overwhelmed by, I mean, life before, the Cheetocracy was difficult. But now it just, really, it's like going from drinking from a garden hose to a fire hose, right? Um, and it's a lot. So those are the things that are grounding me. I see Darby posted about the Side with Love event that's happening on the 14th as well, for those who are feeling overwhelmed by what's going on and looking for community and direction.
And that's the folks outside with love, who are fantastic, um, are really trying to get people grounded in, like, what is it that we can do
Yeah.
together. Small things locally, big things nationally, and together. How do we organize with each other? How do we connect with each other? And what can we do? Because if you're called to do something, but you don't know where to start, you need that. So, but I want to go back to like the spiritual discipline and the spiritual
Mhm.
practice,
Sure.
because we are a religious organization.
We are?
We are,
Okay. Yes, we are.
and it's like it's easy to let spiritual practice fall away,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's easy to see it as an optional thing in our lives. Whatever it is you do for spiritual practice, if it's a prayer practice, if it's a meditation practice, if you go for a walk, if you put your hands in the dirt, like whatever it is you do for spiritual practice, um, that you do with intention and during which time you connect with something greater than yourself, right? Like whatever it is. And like we should have a whole show on spiritual practices at some
Yeah.
point. Note to self,
Yeah.
show on spiritual practices. Those things sustain us, right? And so it's like, when you forget to eat and you wind up hangry,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I haven't eaten all day, and now like I'm wondering why I'm yelling at people and snarky, and right? If you forget to nourish your spirit,
Yeah.
you forget to sustain yourself in that way, you wind up off center,
Yeah.
and you wind up being able to forget what it is that we're called to do
Yes.
in this world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's I think it has to be looked at like feeding yourself.
Yeah.
Like everybody needs food.
Yeah.
Some people eat to live and some people live to eat, but everybody needs some food.
Yeah. And I think we're in this really interesting political moment where people are having some very negative reactions to lots of Black folk saying, I'm going to bed. I'm going to rest.
Mm,
I'm going to brunch with my friends. I'm going line dancing. Like I'm going to sit in the tub. And if you're unfamiliar with the work of Trisha Hersey and the Nap Ministry, she really does this profound work around. She calls it rest as resistance, but I would argue that she's really saying rest as spiritual discipline.
mhm.
That and for people who are generationally sleep deprived, generationally traumatized under what she calls capitalist grind culture, we cannot devalue rest. We cannot, like, yeah, if you earn a living with your body, you can't devalue rest because and we are the original, our bodies are the original commodity of
Mhm.
American culture and American economy.
Yep.
So rest is political action. It's spiritual, it's a spiritual discipline, and it's also political action. And I think we need to learn how to hold space for the reality of that. Um, there was a lot of tension around who was going to show up at the protests, the hands-off protests last week, and a lot of Black folks was like, not me. I'm not doing it. I'm not. Then there are other people who's like,
Well,
we have to. And if that's what you feel, hey, go for it. But I also want to honor people's willingness to honor their truth and their body and their need to take a break from all of that work, that kind of labor, because particularly the progressive movement has overly relied on the labor of Black bodies and underperformed for Black bodies.
yep. It's interesting. Some people were commenting on the lack of police violence at those hands-off rallies.
Mhm.
And a friend of mine who is a Black woman and a minister was like, don't you think the police read that we weren't showing up? I mean, don't you think they understood that their violence would be meted out on an almost entirely white crowd?
Mhm.
And so they didn't do that? Like don't like connect the dots, right?
Mhm.
It's um and if you're used to living with privilege, especially white skin privilege in this society, um, it could be easy to say, "Oh, the police were there and they were so helpful." Ah, they didn't like kettle us into the corner and force us to like push our way out. They didn't show up in riot gear. They didn't. It's like, oh,
Mhm. And they also didn't do that on January the 6th either.
Also true.
So
Also true.
Even
after they were attacked.
Yeah.
By the rioters, by the insurrectionists.
Yeah.
By the now pardoned violent insurrectionists.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's a reason many people with black bodies are like, I'm not putting my body on the front line this time around.
Good.
And I think there's wisdom. There's wisdom in that choice. And at the same time, I'm not going to be upset with someone who decides to if that's where they are. They have the right to do that. But I'm going to honor those who say not today. I'm going fishing. I'm resting.
Yeah, and if your body is the fuel used in the fire of our economy,
right,
then like to actually rest and renew your body and take care of yourself is an act of declaring your lack of consent with that way of being treated.
Well, and I think a lot of people, again, it's sort of like, as a person raised as a Christian, I just say everybody wants to talk about resurrection, but don't nobody want to talk about death. We love to glorify nonviolent direct action in American history. And I want to be really clear. Nonviolent direct action has always depended on the opposition harming Black people's bodies. The protesters were nonviolent, but they willingly walked in knowing they would be the objects of violence, right? And it is the
nonviolent protest was not on the part of Bull Connor and his
right, exactly, right. And it was only, and part of the strategy was to use the technology of television so that the story could be seen in a way that, and that people might, through shame, shock, awe, begin to respond differently. So there was a whole strategy behind it. The people were non-violent, but they were trained and prepared to have violence visited upon them.
Well, and can we be clear? Those successful social change movements led the police to change their tactics.
Yeah.
Right? Because the police said, oh, well, we can use TV too. We can use TV to make it seem like the protesters provoked us.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the strategy now, right? That the police do things that can't be filmed to provoke people into reacting, so that then when the police meet violence upon them, it's their own fault. Right? Because part of that narrative in like the civil rights era of the 50s and 60s was the TV showed the police meeting violence upon nonviolent protesters. And that was that didn't fly with the public.
Yeah.
But if the police are meeting violence upon violent protesters, the white public is all too willing to go, oh yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah.
They're protecting us, they're protecting our businesses, they're protecting our whatever it is.
Yeah, so speaking of Baltimore, because Baltimore locals know the real story behind the uprising. Was it 2015, the Baltimore uprising, where a lot of young people got harmed in a conflict with the police, and people were like, they were tearing up stuff. But most of us who live in Baltimore, what we know is the police actually corralled students trying to get home from school at a local. We have, if you're in a larger city, you have these sort of transportation depots, right, where multiple buses stop, and if it intersects with train systems, da da da. So there's a big one on the west side of town in the Mondawmin area. There's a school across the street. People are trying to get home. The police corralled them, kept the buses from leaving, made them get off, but right. So like they ginned up this energy.
Great. They made people upset.
Yeah. And then it was like, oh, they're protesting. They're throwing, people were trying to get home.
Yep.
After school. And if I had children that were stuck up there, I would have been some kind of upset too. So yeah, that the nonviolent direct action, I think we need to be more honest about what it means and de-romanticize it. And right now, the folks, and it's always dependent on the most marginalized, willing to put their bodies in harm's way. And so, how dare you be resentful that those folks saying, "Well, I'm tired of putting my body on the front line. It's somebody else's turn." Reasonable request. If reciprocity is important to relationship. So the other thing I was just thinking about as we think about what do we do in this moment? And I've just been thinking a lot. I think this is a time to draw on the lessons we learned during the pandemic. Like, check on your people. Build understandings with your people. Remember how during pandemic people started potting, right? So intentionally, like, we're going to build this sort of micro community and look after one another and care for one another. I think this is an opportunity to apply the lessons learned during the pandemic about micro communities of mutual aid.
Absolutely.
And care.
Absolutely. And you can, people might say we have like 2 minutes left and we can do a whole show on this one too. Yeah, that worked for the pandemic lockdown, but will it work for this? And I want to say, I read a fascinating article on the ways in which the people of Chile survived fascism, the Pinochet era in Chile, and the people who did survive, because not everybody did. People were disappeared.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the ways that people who did survive, was by forming those communities, by knowing who their people were, by gathering and having direct connections to people, and knowing, because it meant they kept track of each other, and if someone disappeared, they knew.
Yeah. And you can join us this Sunday at CLF Worship, where I'll be preaching about resurrection as communal praxis, if you want to continue this conversation.
Well, thank you all. This has been a wonderful hour. Next week, we are talking about ministerial transitions in Unitarian Universalism. Aisha and DC should both be back for that fascinating conversation. And then in 2 weeks, we are welcoming Brother Zachary Stevens Walter, who is the assistant minister at Community Church of New York, who's been our partner at Community Church of New York doing prison ministry work. And so we're going to dig a little bit into partnership around abolition. So we have 2 fascinating upcoming shows. We will see you back here. Thank you for spending an hour with me and Dante. And anyone who wants to go get ice cream in Baltimore, you just let me know, because that might be like my entire caloric intake for the week, is like Black-owned ice cream shops.
And you might want to come up with a plan to maybe smuggle some out in dry ice and something. I don't know, but
I'm driving, so I could bring a cooler. There we go. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a great week, or the best one you can.
Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The View.